This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Schonke.
Hey, good Tuesday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 23rd of April. Quite a bit cooler than yesterday, but should have some warming temperatures as soon as tomorrow, and hopefully we can have a few dry days in here as well. We'll visit with Brian Kirshner in the State Climatologist's office at U of I later in the program. Today we'll visit with Brad Zwilling. He and some others at Illinois FBFM have some very interesting data on the Farm Doc Daily website reviewing cost of production for corn and soybeans in 2018. Also, Stanley Culpepper, for 20 years, has been at the University of Georgia. We'll talk about weed resistance, which more and more is a topic, and we'll even talk about multiple modes of action and if that in itself is good enough. But we'll discuss that later in the program as well. So plenty to come here on a Tuesday RFD Today. First, though, Rita has this word with folks at Pioneer.
We check in the fields in Marion, Illinois today with Pioneer Field agronomist Eric Allinger. And Eric, you're in a part of Illinois that's very anxious to get into fields. Kind of paint us the picture of how things look and where you are today.
I'm in southeastern Illinois, so actually part of my area, Rita, has been to the field a couple of weeks ago in White and Gallatin County. We did get a start, and in fact, we do have some customers that have a fair amount of corn planted in Gallatin County. So actually part of this morning's activities will include going to look and see how that corn's doing. For the rest of the folks, just waiting to get back in. And so part of, our words of encouragement to growers right now, you think it's late, it's really not. But when guys think they're late, they think they're pushed and they're pressed for time, they tend to do things in a hurry and maybe don't take the time to do things like they think like they should. So some of the things we were going to perhaps encourage growers to do is certainly vertical tillage tools, getting out there to, quote, dry things out. Probably the best way known to man to create compaction, and that's compaction you'll live with throughout the growing season. It will not go away. Once you start it now, it's going to stay. So working ground wet with a vertical tillage tool, especially when you're not making any dust, is the gift that will keep on giving throughout the growing season. So that's one thing for sure, working ground wet. Anhydrous ammonia. Things can turn dry, and they can turn dry in a hurry. When we think about anhydrous ammonia, we always think about separating that from planting corn by space and time. Space is depth, 8 to 10 inches in depth. Time is theoretically could be a week, should be a week. But in many cases, if guys feel like they need to get moving, they may cut this down to 2 or 3 or 4 days. And again, especially if it turns a little bit dry, your risk of having anhydrous and seed corn get together runs much higher. And if that is the case, you're going to stand to risk injury to the seedlings and actually the seed corn itself. So we discourage guys to do that if at all possible. Planting depth is another thing. Again, guys sometimes feel like they want to shallow up a little bit and just kind of hurry the crop out of the ground. And we would encourage folks not to do that, especially with corn. We encourage planting depths at at least 2 inches to just ensure good rooting and plant development at that depth. And getting shallower than that there are a number of pitfalls that are well understood, from anything from fertilizer injury to herbicide injury, birds, ground not sealing, drying out. Like I said, a lot of pitfalls from planting shallow. So we encourage guys to take that into consideration as well. And maybe last but not least are rotational restrictions of last year's herbicides. So if you were fighting the good fight on weeds last summer, you made that late application of a methicillin product or in a premixed product into mid-June, late June, even early July. We want you to remember that some of those herbicides have rotational restrictions to corn up to 10 months. And so it's probably not a bad time to review that before going to the field, making sure that there's not trouble laying ahead there. So those are just some of the things on our mind right now, Rita, for growers to consider going into the 2019 planting season.
Yeah.
Pioneer Field Agronomist with Rita, Eric Allinger, down in South Central Illinois, with some great tips here in late April. Welcome back. Joining us on the program, Illinois FBFM, Farm Business Farm Management. Brad Zwilling is a co-author of a new piece that you can find on the Farm Doc Daily website about the cost to grow corn and soybeans this past year. Brad, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
I'm doing well, Delos. This is an interesting article. It's always kind of waiting to see what the numbers are going to come in. I know we're a little, this is looking at 2018, but it's always nice to look at those numbers and see how we're getting ready to get in the fields for 2019. So.
Sure. Yeah, and we've got a lot of numbers that we're going to put on the radio, which can be a challenge, but I think we can do this. And just thinking for one, cost of production, I guess let's start with corn first. 18 to 17, just comparing the last couple of years, how much of a difference has there been?
Yeah, and this is a true economic cost. We're looking at all costs, not just cash costs. So we're looking at a return to our investment in machinery, investment in our labor, and our investment in land as well. So those are the things that are also included in these calculations that we kind of look at these costs. So when you look at the cost of production for corn compared to 2017, it varied across the state, and our cost per bushel corn was higher in northern Illinois and central Illinois with lower rated soils. So when I say northern Illinois, you kind of think about a line. We kind of go from north and northwest the Illinois River is kind of the top 22 counties of the state, and then southern Illinois, just kind of giving a references from Alton to Mattoon over to the state line, and south is our southern Illinois, and then the counties left in the middle is our central Illinois based off soil type. So looking at that, we had an increase in those because we had lower corn yields in those areas as compared to a year ago. And then central Illinois with high ratings, and southern Illinois we had really high, or we had lower costs because we're looking at cost per bushel in those cases.
Right. And then for soybeans, was there much of a difference either?
Yeah, soybeans were actually down. The cost, decreased when you look on a per bushel basis because of the decrease in yields. We had really good bean yields in 2018. We had 4 to 8 bushels on acre depending on where you were at in the state. So on a per bushel basis, yes, that we had a decrease in cost, but when you look on a total per acre basis, there was an increase of anywhere from $4 all the way to $14 in central Illinois with higher rated soil. So it varies. We're looking at bushels and we're looking at acres. It's kind of interesting to see the flip-flop, but we know we had an increase in bushels. But when you look across, like I said, the range, when you're looking at that per acre cost, they're pretty much the same from north to south as far as cost per acre for soybeans.
I'd be curious, and maybe this is just for my own entertainment, but what we're talking about on some of these costs, especially a non-land cost, soil fertility and seed and crop protection. So we have to do those, so that would make me think it's a fixed cost. But those costs certainly could be variable over time. So are those fixed costs or variable costs?
Well, we call them variable costs because we can't control them as well, right? Because soil fertility, we can put the amount that we can put on, but we don't set that price. So the soil fertility, pesticides, and seed, you're right, those are all things that we have to, we have to have, but they're things that we can't control the cost. But we can control a little bit more of the labor and the building and the storage and depreciation. We can kind of look at that over time and kind of make that a more of a fixed cost and know what our cost is going in, because it's not going to have that fluctuation like, I kind of a little bit of looking for next year for 2019 from this study. We see costs are going to creep up, especially soil fertility. And so it's so variable from one year to next. I mean, in 2016, fertility cost was up. We went down for 17 and we're going back up for 2018.
It's funny how repairs, fuel, and hire is its own category. And that just finds a way to balance itself. One year my combine breaks down, the next year it's yours, and those numbers just even themselves out over time, I assume.
Over time, yeah. And the biggest thing in that factor was fuel this year. We actually saw a little bit of an increase, and depending on where you're at, where fuel had gone up. And I wasn't even thinking of that. I look at the fuel at the pump. We see that fuel, that's the gasoline cost. But diesel prices have crept up on us, and that's a little bit higher a cost that we saw in 2018.
Yeah. So when there is you expect some difference, but if you can keep that difference in cost of production between like 10 cents an acre, then that's pretty good, because it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, does it?
Right. You're right. You're looking at a cost per acre. Yeah, the difference in there, when we look at these costs that we had from 2017 to 2018, we didn't have much change from a year ago. I mean, our biggest change we saw was in central Illinois in the lower end. But we're all, around $400 on our variable cost per acre. So there wasn't much change from 16 to 17. So it was, when you talked about a fixed cost, we kind of you didn't know that when you started and budgeted for your 2018 crop, but we didn't have much change in cost for the variable cost, and that's why with the increase in yield, even though prices didn't change much, we did see bigger incomes, and that cost of because that cost production didn't change much from 17 to 18.
Well, here's one that entertains me and intrigues me so much. Variable cost soil fertility, Central Illinois, good or poor quality soils was the same amount, and was $12 an acre more than Southern Illinois. You'd think Southern would have to spend even more just to try to catch up, but actually more was spent on what could be the more productive land. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, it's hard to tell what goes on. We don't look at that piece of that, but we look at the dollars and cents, and yeah, that's what you're looking at. They just didn't spend as much in Illinois, and plus there's less corn grown. We do a lot more, wheat and double crop soybean rotation. So there's, we get a third year in there sometimes, in essence, so less corn grown too. So when you divide that over per acre basis, though, we're looking at strictly on the corn cost. So, they've been able to, do some different types of rotation. Northern Illinois has been historically more corn on corn, and that cost is less than the Central Illinois soil rating or soil types for the now soil fertility.
Yeah, the ratios. You look at Northern Illinois, you're looking at, let's see, so out of 1,500 acres. So you're certainly looking 60-40 corn, soybeans, somewhere in there, whereas Central Illinois, it's almost 50-50. And in Southern Illinois, it's actually more 115 more acres soybeans than corn. Stay tuned. Hey, we'll continue this discussion next with Brad Zwilling on RFD Today.
Preparing for planting season? We don't mean to be a pest, but here's a few things you need to know before you grow. The Illinois Department of Agriculture now requires special local needs labels, including new restrictions for the use of herbicide dicamba on top of soybeans in Illinois for the 2019 growing season. Did you know these additional restrictions go beyond federally approved labels? Remember, the label is the law. To find out more about these Illinois-specific labels, visit ilfb.org/label-aware.
When it comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
What's the excitement about buying a brand new car when you pay full price for it? County Farm Bureau members have a reason to be excited. A Farm Bureau membership gives you 2 car purchase discounts. When members buy a new Ford vehicle, they receive $500 off their purchase. And with the purchase of a qualifying Lincoln vehicle, they receive $750 off. Everyone loves a good deal, and the money saved is worth the price of our annual membership. This is just one of our 300,000 plus discounts that are always changing to fit our members' needs. Not a Farm Bureau member? Visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our determination, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
Hi, I'm April Jewell, a teacher in Ballard County School District in Kentucky. Last year, we received word that our school had been selected to receive a $25,000 grant from the America's Farmers Grow Rural Education Program, sponsored by the Monsanto Fund, a philanthropic arm of Bayer. The grant is designed to help further science, technology, engineering, and math education. We used it to upgrade the technology in our classrooms to enhance health science curriculums and better prepare our students for various career paths. Now through April 1st, farmers can nominate a school district to apply for $10,000 or $25,000 grants aimed at improving STEM education. I would encourage all eligible farmers to nominate today for a chance to make a lasting impact in countless classrooms. The process takes less than 5 minutes, and farmers can nominate their school district by visiting americasfarmers.com. That's americasfarmers.com.
Brad Zwilling, Illinois FB FM, and you can find this on Farm Doc Daily website. cost of production for 2018 on growing both corn and soybeans. Now, you throw in the land costs, and that's where you can really change the whole scenario here, whether you're talking about profit or loss.
Yeah, and the way we look at land costs, we're trying to take the cost, whether it's owned, cash rent, and crop share, and weight that based off how many acres they would have had. And, we do an interest charged on land economic based on 1.85%. That's a 4-year moving average, kind of a cap rate that we kind of use. That's what we kind of calculate our land cost for owned acres, and then we use the actual cash rent that's paid for that share. And then for our leasing costs, we kind of do some allocations and allocate the expense we have for going across our landlord's acres, and we call that our leasing cost, and that's what we use for that land cost. And when you look at that from north to south, it's the highest for corn. It's it's the same. It's the highest in northern Illinois, about $236, and goes all the way down to $164 an acre in southern Illinois. And that was just for 2018. That'll change from year to year. A year ago, we saw that go down, so that's an increase. We're seeing an increase there of a good percent from one year to the next. We go anywhere from, I'm looking here, let's see, I'm trying to find my land cost percentage. But, yeah, there was a good increase from 17 to 18 as well. Yeah.
When you put them all together and then you divide it by bushels per acre, so it costs a little more than, at least last year, plus land, it costs more than $4 an acre to raise corn in northern Illinois and $4.33 in southern Illinois. So depending on, especially that land cost, whether or not, what your involvement is for there, that doesn't sound good at all.
No, that's why I try to mention at the beginning, that's an economic cost. And so when we think about economic cost, over the long term, we want to make money. But yeah, it's hard to, that's why we kind of show the non-land cost. You should be able to cover that each year. And our non-land cost was at $3, almost $3 in northern Illinois, and then about $2.70 to $2.94 in central Illinois, and about $3.46 in southern Illinois. So it's a lot higher in southern Illinois because of, we talked about that. Those variable costs are about the same. It's the land cost that comes down. So covering those total costs, that $4.33, that's really hard. But over the long run, we have to cover those costs, our economic costs, or it's hard to continue on and make money throughout our farming career.
Yeah. Non-land costs across the state are fairly even, and then you get to land costs, there's the big difference. And then when you also take into per acre, that's where the differences really show themselves. And same case for soybeans as well.
Right. Yeah. Soybeans, you look at, it's just like you're looking at, it's just the percentage change from year to the next. And, there's huge change in southern Illinois when you get down and look at those costs per acre and how much we got to cover those non-land costs, that they're a lot higher down there than, on a relative basis because of, we put the same amount of inputs and they have the same cost, and we just have lower production down there.
Wow. So these numbers, and these are a very good representation of around the state, and I'm trying to think, we're almost 4 months into the year, and I have not seen commodity prices reflect cost of production very well in here. So these are kind of conversations that I'm sure have been taking place, and if not yet, certainly will need to take place.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is looking at some projection on some budget numbers that University of Illinois has put out. Gary Schnicke has put out his 2019 crop budgets, and as well as looking at some USDA cost to produce forecast. We're looking at a 5% increase in fertility cost, and and then in total variable cost, and a 3% increase for soybeans. And we're not seeing that in prices, so that's why we've got to start finding some other places that we can cut costs, because that variable cost, that fertility cost, we can't really cut, and some of those seed and those things. So we're going to have to try to find some overhead and some other costs that we can try to cut and make money for 2019.
Yeah, and so you're looking in here, labor, buildings, storage, how do I cut? Things like that, and some might say, I've pulled the belt so tight I'm turning purple here. So how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, I think it's the key is, knowing where your numbers are, and getting down to a per acre cost basis so you really know where those are at. Because, we're looking at the average, and every one of those farms are going to be all over the place. So trying to find those and figure out, okay, maybe I could do something different. Machinery depreciation. When times were good, we bought a lot of depreciation or a lot of equipment, to replace and upgrade, and maybe we need to look at that as something maybe, we keep repairing it, or we now need to really focus on not buying a piece of equipment when we have to replace it, but looking at a capital replacement budget so we know when we're going to be doing that and try to kind of spread that cost out and know exactly when that's going to hit. Even though we don't know when that next piece of equipment is going to break or have a major breakdown, we have to replace it. So looking at those things, labor, it's hard to find good labor, so you have to pay almost what it comes. So just being crucial on your operation and understanding which cost that you think you could cut a little bit. So
some of those things you might have just bought automatically now may need a conversation just to make sure it's okay to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Conversation, thinking about that, and also maybe doing a little bit more homework of, price shopping. I know it's harder and harder to do in agriculture as more businesses consolidate, but, maybe we need to ask for a second opinion, ask for another cost in quote and see where we're at and look around for those type of things.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. You can find all these details online at farm.daily.illinois.edu. Brad, thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Delos.
Brad Zwilling, Illinois FBFM. They have the last 5 years on there of the averages of cost of production for corn and soybeans in Illinois, broken down northern and central, a couple of different land values in central, and then also southern Illinois info as well. More to come on a Tuesday, RFD Today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Spring is here and things are buzzing. Farmers and pollinators are working together to help feed us. In fact, 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat exists because of bees, butterflies, birds, bats, and other insects. Pollinators are important to our food system and the ecosystem overall. That's why farmers and those in the agricultural industry are working together to protect pollinators through education, research, and conservation efforts. Visit ilagformonarchs.org to join the buzz. That's ilagformonarchs.org.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
Country Financial has been protecting
Hello, I'm Trooper Teal at the Illinois State Police. Since January 1st, 15 Illinois State Police officers have been hit as a result of failure to reduce speed and move over into the other lane. 2 of those officers sadly lost their lives. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Be part of the solution. Put your phone down, focus on your drive, pay attention to the road, move over, slow down, just drive.
A message from the Illinois Farm Bureau and the Illinois State Police. All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. Welcome back to RFD today on a Tuesday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Joining us, University of Georgia Extension down in southern Georgia, Dr. Stanley Culpepper is on the program. Doc, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. What kind of progress is going on your way? How wet have you been? What's going on in your part of agriculture and your part of the country?
Well, we were certainly wet earlier on, late winter, but we've really dried out nicely, and most of our growers are really, really active right now. In fact, I'm sitting in a cotton field. I'm going to plant cotton as soon as we get off the phone today. So cotton's going in the ground. Corn is hopefully mostly finished up. So in the southeast and definitely in South Georgia, we've definitely had a good couple of weeks to start rolling. Excellent.
What kind of what are you up against just from a weed management standpoint? I hear horror stories from folks in the South. So, just how much time, how much effort, how much money, how big of a problem is it for you for some or all of these crops?
Well, so this is actually a very timely call. So Palmer amaranth is still the driver weed. If you survey our growers and you say, hey, what are your most problematic weeds? Number one's Palmer amaranth. Number two's Palmer amaranth. Number three's Palmer amaranth. So pigweed is definitely our number one issue. But right now is a very, very important time for us. We got to make sure as we're moving into these fields that no Palmer amaranth or no pigweed has emerged. That's critical. We got to start clean, at least without the pigweed, and then we got to make sure we put those residual herbicides out. And it doesn't matter if it's cotton, corn, soybeans, or any of the 45 vegetable crops that I work in. Residual herbicides are critical to get the year started off right. So, and that's really what we're into at the moment.
Okay, so a couple of thoughts here. My first one is, the weed seed is in the ground. So you're talking about spraying before it shows itself. Am I getting that right?
So at least in the southeast, and definitely in my state, every field in the state has the weed. So there's no wondering if you have it or not. You know you have it. So when you're out to plant, whether it's in conservation tillage or conventional tillage, we have to make sure that weed's not already emerged. So if you're in an area where erosion is not an issue, tillage is certainly a valid, sound option for you. Other options, of course, are a multitude of different herbicides, but we got to make sure that pigweed's not there when we're planting, because if you start off behind, which if that weed's already an inch or 2 inches, in fact, I'm looking at one right now that's 6 inches, if you plant into a field like that, you're starting off behind, and you just cannot win starting off behind with a weed like Palmer amaranth.
You're asking a lot already at 6 inches. You're asking a lot out of chemicals to be able to fix that sort of thing.
That's right. There are very few that will control that weed when there's no crop in the field, and then when you put the crop in the field, that makes it even more challenging. So again, starting clean, no matter where you're at with your most problematic pest, again, Palmer amaranth for us is absolutely essential. And then we got to make sure we get some residual herbicides out there right after we're planting to help us prevent an overwhelming population that we can't manage after that point.
Okay, that was my other thought. We have heard around here, that word residual, we hear that over and over and over again. So that goes with multiple modes of action. Those things go hand in hand?
You absolutely got it right. It's all about diversity. It's diversity in your management approach. It's diversity in your herbicide chemistry. It's diversity in your cropping structure, if that's economically sustainable. But multiple modes of action for those of us that are utilizing herbicides is absolutely essential.
I'm just trying to think of what it would be like, say, for cotton or peanuts or probably several other crops as well, that I was talking to Dr. Mark Bernards at Western Illinois, and one of the things he's talking about is, get the crop to canopy so it can do a lot of the work for you. But do some of your crops, do you even have a canopy that can help with this sort of thing, or are you further against the 8-ball in that regard, where you have, where there's just more exposure and more opportunity for those weeds to grow?
And that is such a great question. You're absolutely right. My buddies up there in the Midwest that got the corn and the beans on some of that amazing soil that I could use as fertilizer, they have a huge advantage when it comes to crop competition. And I'll give you a perfect example. So I'm going to plant cotton today when we get off the phone. I won't canopy until mid or late July.
Oh, gosh.
So canopy in a crop like cotton is extremely challenging, and that's why we got to be really, really smart when it comes to weed management. And at least down here, pigweed, Palmer amaranth, it'll emerge about 10 months out of the year, right? So it's a mighty challenge. I will say our growers are doing an amazing job, an absolutely amazing job. The unfortunate part is the economic burden to manage this plant. That's really the worst part of the whole situation.
Right. And that could come from different, whether that's, how much we spend on chemicals or how much we spend on diesel and the tillage that's required. Are you looking at that at several different ends that way?
Yes, sir. It's the herbicide management program. It's for the conventional guys, the tillage. We're still doing a fair amount of hand weeding in my part of the world. I know that's probably unique for many of your listeners, but my growers understand that, hey, that pigweed just survived my best management program. I am not going to let it go to seed. So we're still investing a lot in hand weeding, even with today's amazing technologies that are available. But when I was in high school and college, we were managing in our cottonweed management program for probably about $30 an acre.
Oh, boy.
And today it's double or triple that, depending on where you're at in the population.
Hey, we're already up against a commercial break. Hang on the line, and we'll continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes. Dr. Stanley Culpepper at Georgia Extension on RFD today.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up,
let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yonke. Well, certainly no turnaround Tuesday. We're just going in one direction right now. We're down 3 to 4 for corn. We're down 8 to 9 for soybeans. May corn down 4 1/4, 350 and a half, just a fraction off the low. July down 4 1/4, 359 and a quarter. December down 3 3/4, 378 3/4. May soybeans down 8 3/4, 868 and a quarter, also a fraction off the low. July down 9 1/4, 881 and a half. November down 8 1/4, $9.01 That's on the low, but quite quickly approaching the $9 mark. May wheat down a penny and a quarter, 434 and a half. July down a penny and a quarter, 440 and a half. June hogs down $1.57, 92.20. They were almost limit down yesterday. June cattle up 35, 121.92. DeLoss Yonke, RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD Today. I'm DeLoss Yonke. We're fighting our way through some audio issues. We apologize, but the beauty of automation at times. Thankfully, the face-to-face conversation could still work. Dr. Stanley Culpepper has been at the University of Georgia. It's 20 years now doing work for Georgia Extension down there. You're just talking about the economic the costs, the extra cost per acre that it's associated with fighting these crops, or fighting these weeds in particular. Here's my question for you as we talk about residuals and multiple modes of action. If I use the same products, even in multiple modes of action, if it's the same brand names, if it's basically the same jugs, is that concern in itself? I mean, it may not be coming as fast, but if it's the same jugs year after year, would that be a problem?
Yes, sir. There's no question, and hopefully extension throughout the country or wherever our growers are getting their information or getting new information that helps them understand herbicide modes of action. It's not good enough just to know product A or product B. We have to know the herbicide mode of action of each of the products that we're using. Otherwise, we can't do exactly what you said. We got to rotate those herbicide modes of action. We got to be diverse. So it's critical that we understand which modes of actions the products we really like belong to. For example, in our part of the world, flumioxazin or Valor is one of the names, and fomesafen reflex, they're the same class of chemistry. So my growers say, well, I'm rotating, but in the way that we're killing the weed, we're not necessarily rotating. So we've got to make sure we got a good sound management program, and that's exactly the kind of research I'm doing today. Is I want to build a program, provide that program to our growers, and if they follow that program, they're going to have a diversity in herbicide classes of chemistry, and they're going to have a diversity in overall management program other than just using herbicides. Long term, we got to be better than just herbicides. We got to be integrated, and we got to implement a sound program.
Do you deal with cover crops down there and use that as an opportunity for weed suppression?
I love cover crops. I absolutely love it, primarily because Palmer amaranth is very, very sensitive to a cover crop if you handle it correctly. But it can be extremely effective. In fact, I can reduce, on average, Palmer amaranth emergence probably 60 to 70% if I can get my cover crop right. Now, that may mean Mother Nature's got to cooperate where I ain't get enough biomass, right? But I love cover crops, and I think long-term cover crops are going to be the key to herbicide resistance management. I'm sure you're aware of all the different weed species that are becoming resistant to all our different classes of chemistry. And I think cover crops long-term implemented in a sound herbicide program will extend our future dramatically. And we really need to get together and work more efficiently and effectively with USDA and RCS and get better programs and get better incentive programs to get our growers to use that type of approach more efficiently.
Yeah, I remember just talking to my dad about this sort of thing. It was either last year or 2 years ago. It was probably both. You know, you spray something once and it turns yellow, and then a couple of days later, I mean, it's almost like you just made it angry. And as more and more resistance comes in, just how prolific these things are able to be in these kind of scenarios. And unfortunately, it seems to be in a shorter and shorter window of time.
Yeah, and you know, there's several things going on there. So first of all, I think at least our family farm, I'm from a bicentennial family farm, you know, I think we get better every year. We get better with the crop production. Well, we're feeding the crop more efficiently. We're producing that crop more efficiently. Well, the weeds have the ability to take advantage of that as well, right? So we're helping these guys because we're better farmers, but we've got to run the management program that prevents them from being there. I can remember back right when I was starting college, the Roundup Ready technology came out. And at that time, you know, the theory was, well, let every weed come up, we'll go spray Roundup, and we'll kill everything. Well, 20 years later, you realize that's the absolute worst thing you can do. You don't want to kill all the weeds with your favorite herbicide. That's not sustainable. That's how you develop resistance. So, again, it's that management program. It's making sure there's no Palmer amaranth up at planting. It's making sure we use residual chemistry at planting. It's making sure we rotate our post-emergence herbicides, and we continue to use that residual chemistry, and then we understand the value of making sure those plants don't go to seed. So it's changed dramatically in 20 years, and it's absolutely fascinating to be a part of it.
Well, it's certainly different, and as the as things change just from a size perspective, for example, if I'm farming 3 counties, or if I have places to go here, there, and everywhere, and the window is so short to get it done, seems like that can be harder and harder to accomplish.
There's no doubt about it. And keep in mind, when you're farming, you're also the banker, you're the mechanic, you got to get the fertilizer, you got to get the herbicides, you got to keep the sprayer running. So there's so much stuff that goes on every single day. And that's why, at least in my part of the world through Extension, we basically develop prescription management programs to help our growers. So if you plan on today, then I can tell you exactly when you need to be coming back for your first post-emergence treatments, et cetera. So I think prescription weed management programs are very beneficial. Most growers can't follow it exactly, but it gives them a guideline or a tool to how they can be timely and get back into that field when they need to. And it's just another way that we can help a grower, which is, of course, why I get up most days.
Sure. Beyond cover crops then, like you said, systematic approaches beyond opening another jug, what's something else that would come to mind off the top of your head?
So again, tillage is a very, very effective management program if you're in areas where erosion, whether it's wind or water erosion, are not an issue, right? In South Georgia, we have a lot of flat areas that's very effective. My buddy in Tennessee doesn't work at all for those guys, right? But in areas where tillage is, favorable for the environment and for the growers' resource being their farm, I think that's extremely effective. Cover crops, again, I absolutely think are essential and long term. I think they'll be the key to our success. And then growers are just as creative. They come up with their own ideas, but hand weeding those few escapes. Hopefully today we're good enough that we don't have to spend $15 or $20 per acre walking across the field pulling up weeds. Hopefully we can do it for 3 to 5. But getting those weeds out that survive our best shot at controlling them, that is so valuable because remember, Palmer amaranth female, she can produce 400,000 to 500,000 seed per plant when competing at least with cotton for the entire year. Wow. Right? So, and you've heard of numbers up to 1 million, but a lot of times they're not competing with a crop. But when you compete with a crop, it just takes a few Palmer amaranth female plants to really change the game and set you way back.
Yeah, per plant. That to me, it's amazing that can even take place. But per plant, that's a lot of seeds that can blow. And they're little bitty seeds, they can cover a lot of ground in a short period of time too.
Yep, they're about the size of a sharpened pencil point. So they're really small, and they can move in many ways that you can't even dream of. So, again, the key is to identifying your worst pest. And I'm sure some of your listeners I don't have a peatweed problem. Maybe it's morning glory, maybe it's horseweed, maybe it's something else. But it's that same approach that the one that's the most problematic for you, that's costing you the most money. You got to be super aggressive and start working those populations down. Because when we do that, then all of a sudden we become much more economical and much more sustainable because we're not dependent or likely overusing our herbicides like many of us are unfortunately doing today.
Well, we got to scoot. We're already out of time, but we appreciate the conversation. We'll have to do it again sometime down the road. And good luck planting today as well.
Yes, sir. You guys have a great day.
Dr. Stanley Culpepper, University of Georgia Extension on RFD today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Nice bounce to start the week in the hog market. Illinois direct hog market, $3 to $4 higher for fat hogs and for sows. Butcher hogs from $51 to $60 a hundredweight. Light sows, $44 to $53. Heavyweights, $50 to $60. All of that $3 to $4 higher than Friday. And light boars were up $5 for the top of 35. Lean hog futures, though, have dropped quite a bit. We lost $3 to $4 last week. We lost almost a limit on June hogs Monday and down more than $1 to start Tuesday as well. Went from close to 100 to 92 in a little more than a week's time. Crop condition ratings yesterday from Illinois Ag Statistics were released. Pasture condition went from 50 to 52% rated good or excellent, and from 14 to 8% poor or very poor. This is the RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit?
And light boars were up $5 for the top of 35. Lean hog futures, though, have dropped quite a bit. We lost $3 to $4 last week. We lost almost the limit on June hogs Monday and down more than $1 to start Tuesday as well. Went from close to 100 to 92 in a little more than a week's time. Crop condition ratings yesterday from Illinois Ag Statistics were released. Pasture condition went from 50 to 52% rated good or excellent, and from 14 to 8% poor or very poor. This is the RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
All right, we're back. We're struggling, but we're back here, RFD today. But we'll get through these things and get them sorted out quickly as possible. Brian Kirshner, meanwhile, is on the phone from the State Climatologist's office over in Champaign. Brian, how are you?
Hey, Delos. Doing well here. How are you?
Pretty good. Now, here we are. We're approaching May, so hopefully we can have some windows here for planting and other fieldwork activities. It has been an adventurous April so far, though, hasn't it?
Yes, that is certainly true. And looking at least at this week, we were fortunately in a relatively drier weather pattern this week, which is probably the first time to say that in a while. Even with that, there still exists several chances throughout the week for widely scattered showers and storms, more so in the southern portion of the state. And over the next 5 days, the National Weather Service forecasts around a tenth of to a half an inch of rain for most of the state, with locally higher amounts possible in extreme southern Illinois.
And southern Illinois saying, well, enough is enough. It seems like every week when you see the reports, southern Illinois has had precip more than average, and in some cases much more than average. So that may continue for a little while?
Yeah, that may continue for a little while. Even looking at April so far, already in the southern portion of the state, they have 4 to 5 inches of precipitation, with the maximum is in the counties bordering the Wabash and Ohio rivers down there, where the rest of the state, has substantially less precipitation than that for the month so far.
Yeah, I talked to a farmer in White County yesterday, asked how it was, and he said wet. He said that's about as polite as I could put it. So, a week ago, so I was thinking last Thursday, and I was looking at certain forecasts, and every day had a rain chance in them, and then the forecast went back to just cloudy skies. It seems more and more these rain chances are creeping up. So maybe 20 or 30% chances, but it seems like the chances are creeping up quite a bit for, well, basically taking us to May 1st.
Yeah, that's true. And even this time of year, we get more widely scattered precipitation and convective storms. So, a chance of 20 or 30%. But if you live in the area that gets a convective storm or thunderstorm, you could still be dealing with localized flooding events given the high soil moisture. And, yeah, this pattern looks to persist at least for the next week or two in a similar fashion.
Temperatures this week, maybe a little fluctuation as well. Some days a little bit more than average, and some days a little bit less than average. Nothing extreme, but seems like we're gonna go up and down for a few days here.
Yeah, certainly true. I think temperatures look to continue to remain seasonable throughout the week, so that is some good news. Forecasted highs in the 60s to 70s throughout the state, and lows in the 40s and 50s. But as you mentioned, yesterday we even had several stations reach 80 or higher, letting us know the warm season is here. And then today we're back down into, the mid-60s, which actually is average or seasonable for this time of year.
Yeah. Well, what do you see for May? One of the outlooks that I saw actually looked like it was fairly promising when May rolled around for field work activities.
Yeah, I think it is fairly promising. And I think even any time in the next week or two that we get these extended dry periods or a few days of dry periods, I would recommend getting in, as much field work or planning work as you can, not knowing what the future will bring. But looking at the Climate Prediction Center May outlook, it's not showing anything too extreme. It currently favors slight probabilities for warmer than average temperatures for all but extreme west central portions of Illinois, and it's showing an equal chance for above, near, or below average precipitation across the entire state.
Wow. Well, that's not bad for the month ahead then. Do you have any 30 to 90 day type of projections once we get past that as well?
Yeah, the 30 to 90 day or the 3-month outlook, not really too much difference from the May outlook. It's favoring slight probabilities of above average temperatures for much of the state and slight probabilities of above average precipitation for much of the state. So it kind of mirrors what we've been seeing the past couple months, but it's not showing anything, too extreme on either end.
We've had plenty of extreme. We could do for a while without the extremes. Is there an El Nino influence in that then, do you think?
So not entirely. We are under an El Nino advisory from the National Weather Service, and they have us at a 65% chance of weak El Nino conditions continuing throughout the rest of the summer month. But really, since this is a weak event, we're not expecting any significant impacts at this time. But we will continue to monitor the event and see if it influences our weather patterns in any way moving forward. El Nino events historically do not have much climate influence during the late spring and summer across the Midwest and Illinois. And this is because the jet stream is weaker and moves further north.
Gotcha. All right. Very good. Thanks so much, Brian. We'll talk to you down the road. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good. Look forward to it. Thanks.
Brian Kirshner from the Office of the Illinois State Climatologist. National Weather Service in Chicago yesterday tweeted that Rockford had its first 80-degree day of 2019, which is right on par with the long-term average. The average for the first 80-degree day actually is the 22nd, and the last one in 2018 was on the 9th of October, 2 days after the exact long-term average date. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Thanks for joining us. We say watch your in. State conservationist Ivan Dozier will be with us on tomorrow's program.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.